Hey guys, Luna here, and welcome back to our life. Let's just continue where we left off, where we managed to finally get through every single event in a step 2. So let's just get to a summer ending. Yes, I'm sure. There's no denying it. Today was the very last day of summer. Tomorrow you're heading to class. Your feelings were muddled. There were aspects of going to school that you missed, and others you would happily live without. If only you could pick and mix between the bits of summer and school. You got dressed, not envisioning the day before you, but contemplating what lies ahead of you tomorrow. Life was going to be different, but you had to come to think of the summer vacation as the norm. But school sucked up the majority of the year, whereas the summer vacation was just the reprise in the middle. So rather than them being different, it was kind of a return to normal? What did your normal life really mean? You considered how fondly your moms talked about their summer vacation as kids. You dimly recognized that 1 year of the pattern of school and summer itself would be over for good. It was hard to imagine. You had gotten distracted, one arm still out of a sleeve. You pulled it through and put your mind back to the present. This season had brought plenty of changes of its own, like Kira's visit, though that too was coming to an end today. You were happy till you finally got a chance to know her. She was interesting to be around, and you liked how easy it was to talk to her. When you finished dressing, which was good, Cove would be there any moment. You agreed to see his mom elf together. Officially, the plan was that he would come over to bring you around to his house when she was ready to set off, but you both knew that you would be hanging out for at least a little while beforehand. Kira's visit had troubled Cove when it first happened. It had been a sudden change, thanks to Mr. Owen's infamous tendency to surprise people, but once he was able to adjust, he'd been in pretty good spirits with her around. It was a relief for everyone. The next thought that crossed your mind was... Let's see, he'd be polite, couldn't wait to see Cove. Cove knew your house well enough. You could lounge in your room to wait for him. You made yourself comfortable on your bed. This is where he'd be hanging out, so there wasn't much point in going downstairs just to come straight back up again. It wouldn't be the first, and it probably won't be the last time that Cove had brought himself up to your room without you taking him there. A knock at the door broke you in the idle daydream you'd been having about endless summers. You recognized the sound immediately, different from the cheery tune Ma rapped out when she was wanting your attention, or Mom's direct beats, and Elizabeth tended to skip knocking completely. Those knocks were just hard enough to be heard and had uncommonly long pauses in between. They were Cove's. Come in. Cove opened the door, smiling casually as he caught your eye. Hey. Looks like you found my secret base. You might want to work on the secret part. He stepped further into the room. With other guests, you might have offered them a seat, but you and Cove were long past those tentative stage of friendships. Your room was as familiar to him as his own. You watched as Cove sat down at your desk chair. He preferred his preferred spots. He rolled it closer to the bed to make it easier to chat, tweaking the angle so that he was facing you fully. Once happy with the position, he leaned on towards you, hands on his lap. His actions weren't the ones someone who had planned on moving from his spot anytime soon, even though you had the appointment to keep together that day. When's your mom leaving?
Don't worry about it.
We got some time. She still got a shower and stuff before she goes. She didn't want me to just keep hanging around while she was doing that. He lifted his head, his gaze drifting through the window, and chuckled. I can't believe she's already leaving. Just when I'm getting used to her being there every day. He leaned back in the chair, a wired smile tickling his cheeks. She'll be back. He cocked his head thoughtfully before shrugging. Ran a hand through his hair before shaking his head, as if shaking off the topic like a dog whipping off water following a drip in the sea. Curve perched along the chair's arm and propped his jaw up against his curled hands. There was a natural ease to his movements, a familiarity from the echoes of all the time before when he sat in that same position. This was a really nice summer. Glad we were able to spend so much time together. Cove, still nestled cozily in your chair, smiled at your response. How's your fish doing? Really good. Things in the tank are stable and everyone looks healthy. That was nice to hear. You learned from Cove how hard it was to maintain an aquarium. Ladybug's been busy, keeps darting between the plants and out again when I walk by, like a game of peekaboo or hide and seek. Yeah. Cove idly glanced out the window, gave a resigned sigh. It's gonna be harder to surf, with school. It's getting colder out. I might store my board away. I like surfing, but I wish you liked me. I can't stick to the board. He gave a light smile, coupled with a shrug as a response. Won't be long until we get our grades for that summer work we did. Oh yeah, I think mine's gonna go well. I'll be alright. Do you think we'll see Miranda around the school this year? Probably. She could be in one of our classes again. It'd be nice to see her again. Luna, Cove. The sudden call from downstairs caught you both unaware. You nearly forgotten the world outside your room. From the guilty look on his face, Cove had done the same. Just had a call. Cove's mom's ready to go. If you're quick, she might keep the mandatory motherly smothering to a minimum. Your dad are dead, but it was nice that Mom and Miss Pries had their strange sense of humor in common. Your eyes met Cove's. Wordlessly, you headed downstairs together. Each step of the way there was painfully slow, like he was trying to delay the inevitable. His whole body tense, leaving the house, and Cove froze altogether before you both could cross the street.
Oh.
The door's open. Dad must be taking your stuff out. You swallowed hard. She's really gonna leave. He rested a hand on his arm. You'll be okay, you can do this. He looked at you uncertainly, and you gently squeezed his arm for support. At that, some of the conflict burn on his face eased a bit. Together, you went across the street inside his house, finding his parents in the living room surrounded by his mom's packed things. Hey, kids. Good timing. I just called the taxi.
Hi.
Hi, Luna. I'm so glad I got to see you today. It was fabulous getting to know you this summer. Finally got to put a face to the name I've heard so many times. She winked and Cove pouted on cue over the teasing. I'm really happy I got to meet you too. Hopefully it won't be too long before we see each other again. Nodding, Kira turned her attention back to her boys. She patted Cliff on the arm with a warm smile, then she enveloped her Cove in a crushing hug. Initially, Cove squirmed to break free from her grip, but his mom was unfazed and kept him locked in place. Heartbeats later, he gave in and hugged her back tightly.
I'm so glad.
I'm so happy this trip was a success. Cliff looked like he was bursting with pride. And then Cove stiffened, Kira loosening her hold on him enough to study his face concerned. She spoke her next words in a whisper that had been meant just for herself.
What do you think?
Do you want to unshelve it? Raising an eyebrow, Cliff watched them carefully. His smile began to falter.
What's wrong?
What's wrong? Cove sighed, and his gaze flickered over to you for a moment, and then just as quick, it was back on his parents.
It's okay.
It's alright.
Really?
Are you sure? I don't want to do it now. I can tell Dad later. Nervously, you watched his exchange with the growing suspicion that Cove didn't want to have that conversation while you were there. You wondered if you should offer to leave when Kira gave Cove a pat on the head.
All right.
You can always call me if you want me to be part of the conversation, okay? I'll call. Thanks, Mom. Cove still looked baffled about what Kira and Cove were referring to, but you watched as shoulders slowly relaxed. You figured that he had decided to wait for Cove to be ready to talk to him. And with Cove's silence, things seemed to be settled for now. After that, it wasn't long before the taxi arrived, rolling up in front of the house in a clear view of the open door. Kira stood up, smiling sadly. Well, that's my ride. Yeah. The matching reply got a chuckle off Kira as you all filtered out of the house. Father and son went with Kira's bags in hands. Once outside, you spotted your family waiting by the street, and to your surprise, Derek was also with them. He stood uncomfortably and waved as soon as you noticed him.
What's up?
Hey, it's Luna. Hi, Cove. When did you get here? My dad dropped me off just a little bit ago. Thought I could visit one more time before school started.
Sorry.
You picked a busy time, sorry. Derek couldn't even look at Cove. He nervously kept rolling with a pebble in the bottom of his shoe.
Sorry.
I wasn't even thinking that your mom would be leaving today. I'm sorry, dude. What? You're not interrupting anything. You're always welcome here. It would have been sad if I didn't get to say goodbye before leaving. I think so, too. It was apparent Derek would have preferred to have gone there at more opportune moments. He never liked seeming impolite, but their reassuring words soothed his worries. The tension was holding in his body lessened, and he looked like he was feeling much more like himself. Bye, Derek. It was fun getting to know you. Bye, Ma'am. Is there anything I can do to help?
Nah.
Don't worry yourself for that. We're just about to get set. In that short time, Cliff had gathered and packed the bags into the trunk. Kira took one last look at everyone inside. Alright, I don't want to keep the driver waiting. It's time to head out. The little bit of crowd that formed around started their courses of farewells and well-wishers traveling, but Kira still made no moves to get into the taxi. She placed her attention on Cove. I'll call when I get to the airport, and not when I made it to Nevada. So you better call the moment you walk into the door at home. Otherwise, you'll be wondering all night if you got any trouble on the way there.
Can do.
I can do that. And could you call tomorrow too, so I can tell you how school went? Of course, I'm gonna hear all about it. Kira put a hand on Cove's head and affectionately ruffled his hair one last time. Then she let go, only to move into squeezing his cheeks in her hands and said, Mom!
Cove!
I love you so much, baby. She was chuckling by the time she freed him and rounded things off with a small tap to the tip of his nose. Cove rubbed his face with a grin. Finally, she walked over to the car while waving and took a seat in the taxi. Cove looked at around Cove's shoulders and kept him close as he began to pull away. For a moment, Cove looked up at his dad and then wrapped an arm around his back.
Bye.
Bye, Mom. Bye, travel safe. Kira rolled down the window and stuck her head out of it. She waved again while blowing kisses at Cove and Cliff. See you again. Before she was out of sight, you decided to call out with your family and hers. As you added your voice to the others, you watched Kira's smile grow larger. The cab turned down another road and completely disappeared from view. Cove let go of his dad and took a few steps into the empty street, still looking in the direction his mom went. He smiled quietly, deep in thought. You got the impression Cove was feeling better than he was earlier. He was finally content with the way things were. You jumped a bit when your mom put a hand on your shoulder, pulling you away from your thoughts. She smiled when you looked at her. This was a great vacation, huh? Summer isn't over until the second I fall asleep. No naps for you then. Can't risk you accidentally ending summer a few hours too early for the rest of us. Chuckling, you shook your head in amused. Cove walked back over to the group, still genuinely happy. Derek grinned at him welcomingly, and everyone else there still smiled at him, even Elizabeth.
Well?
Ma clapped her hands together, bringing everyone's attention back to the present. It's almost time for lunch. I think I'll put something special together. Her eyes sparkled with a plan, and Mom smiled. I bet you could use some help with that. That'd absolutely be wonderful. Derek glanced between the two, his eyebrows furrowed. Is there something I could do? Mom exchanged a fond expression. Ma shook her head.
How sweet.
That's very sweet, Derek, but it's alright. It's not your job. Technically, your dad left you under Cliff's watch. You were meant to be taken care of by him, not doing chores for the neighbors. Mom laughed a little over her own joke, and you watched Derek look away discouraged.
It's okay.
It's okay, I don't mind. He was a little bit bashful about it. You wondered if Mom Shook had just reminded him that he wasn't initially meant to be invited to lunch. It was getting a little awkward. Mom grinned sympathetically. Her comment was meant to lighten the mood, not bring it back down. Ma tried again to get things moving forward. Why don't you kids go have fun? You can all come back in about an hour. We'll make enough for everyone. Ma nodded in agreement.
Sounds good.
Another stunning idea, Lonnie. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That sounds like a plan, then. I don't want to cramp your style. I got some stuff to work on, so I can be out of your hair this afternoon. You should come by later, too. No reason you should be the odd man out. Mom seemed amused as Cliff rubbed his neck nervously. He grinned a wavering but pleased smile.
Thanks very much.
I appreciate the invite. He looked over the assembled crowd with knowing glances. I can help you with as many people as you're feeding. This is going to be a lot of food. Yeah, that's, 6 people? Oh, no, 7, because Elizabeth. Didn't you hear what we told Derek? It wouldn't be fair to make you cook when we're the ones that invited you in. Ma raised an eyebrow when clearly afraid of Derek.
Come on.
I insist. Derek would be missing the time with pals. This would be a break for me. I'm quite the chef. Ma and Ma exchanged further glances before Mom shrugged.
True.
Maritide arguments. If you're sure, we'll be happy to have you, Chef Cliff. Cliff grinned and widened and seemed more hyped than he expected you to be about helping with lunch. Cove shook his head, a fond smile on his face. Then all those grown-up people will be heading inside. I assume the rest of you kiddos will be staying out? Maybe not all of them. Ma tilted her head, a silent question for Elizabeth. Your sister thought for a moment.
All right.
I'll stay with the kids.
That's fantastic.
That's great. Both of your moms smiled at her, while Derek and Cove didn't seem to appreciate her phrasing. But with the plan decided, all 3 parents waved and headed out for your house. It was just you teenagers now. Elizabeth looked at you and the others, a curious expression on her face.
So
what now? You silently wondered if Elizabeth only stayed out with you to avoid getting roped into work. Then again, she could just generally wanted to hang out. You couldn't tell with your sister. Cove spoke up after no one else did to answer Elizabeth's question. Want to go down to the shopping streets? It's been a while. I don't think there's a lot of other things we could agree on. Yeah, sure.
awesome.
Sounds awesome to me. Unlike you guys, I haven't been there 1,001 times. It's new to me. Let's do it. You showed the road as a group down to the beach and then to the left. It took less than 15 minutes to arrive, one of the conveniences of Sunset Bird. The 4 of you looked around at the familiar shops, trying to see if anything caught your attention this time. Derek was the most enthusiastic. He checked out every stall with his eyes wide in wonder. Elizabeth and Cove were in good spirits as well. That's so cool. He ran over to the street musician who was currently doing a card trick for a group of entertained tourists. Derek clapped when the magician showed a middle-aged man his card. Derek turned back to the group with a curious gleam to his face. What does it take to perform here anyway? Do you have to ask somebody, or do you just show up and start doing stuff? Who would even ask? It's a public street. Hey, Miss Mayor, can I pull a rabbit out of my hat? Please, Flopsy's well behaved, I promise. Derek chuckled, his eyes searching up and down the scene.
Maybe
There's a boss at the shopping street? No one does any of this around my neighborhood. It's just regular stores behind walls. It's different if someone wants a real store, but here I'm pretty sure people are just putting on their little shows wherever they want to and whatever. It's pretty neat. Would we be allowed to do something here too? Cove laughed and Derek began almost vibrating with excitement. Elizabeth rolled her eyes. What would you do? Well, I don't know what. Not yet. I mean, I just found it's a possibility, you know? But there's gotta be something. We'd know really cool stuff. I'm pretty sure we can think about it and we could plan a show that would really get the crowd pumped. Gave a look to the other 2. Derek continued to brainstorm out loud about different potential performances while he glanced over at Cove and Elizabeth. I mean, I can bounce a soccer ball on my head. Last time I got it to 8 bounces before it fell. I wouldn't bring a ball here.
Why?
Why not? Cove gestured to everything around. The stalls, the people, all the colorful chaos that made up the shopping streets. Would you want to chase a lost ball here? And what if you hit somebody? Even if you're good, someone else could bump into you. That's true. Derek thought about it some more, and then he watched another performer, and one doing tricks with 2 small dogs. One was fluffy and cream-colored, while the other was a cool gray. The woman held up rings. Both animals jumped through the openings, happy to receive a treat at the end. Derek brightened. Maybe I'll teach crabs how to race. Crabs? It could work. With some amusement, the gang continued to pursue the stalls. Elizabeth found some earrings with a dangling, badly misprinted globe that everyone laughed at. Globe picked up a blob as Iceland, but Derek thought that it had to be Greenland. You know, this is a world with what looks like 9 continents? I think you're both wrong. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah. No, it's Australia. The other 3 giggled at your interjection. Suddenly, Cove froze. You stared at him and tried to see what caught his attention. When you saw a familiar face down the right. All made sense. Between the crowds, his bright hair stood out in a neon green bowl in a kitchen sink. It was Jeremy! Jeremy slowly drifted his eyes down the street, his eyes wide in mutual recognition. He definitely noticed you. Derek frowned and Cove tensed up. You couldn't help but remember the last time you seen Jeremy at Merida's birthday party. No wonder Cove was already defensive. He looked away. He didn't want to even start with Jeremy's shenanigans today. Elizabeth raised an eyebrow. Her gaze swept over at Jeremy without a hint of a clue. Jeremy simply scoffed at himself and waddled deeper into the crowd of people. Derek relaxed and exhaled loudly. Glad he's not going to start anything. He peeked over at Elizabeth with a tiny smirk. See, that was the mean kid.
What?
Huh? She still didn't get it. The first summer day hadn't made nearly as much of an impression on her as it did for Derek, but he smiled and waved it off. Just forget about him. I already have. He laughed, and Cove smiled lightly. He seemed in much better mood now that Jeremy was gone. Your eyes had wandered over to where Jeremy disappeared. You hadn't forgotten the day you met him either. He was only going to be in town for a vacation with his parents he hated. That glimpse was probably the last time you'd ever see him. He broke from the group and went after Jeremy. I'll be back. Luna? I won't be long. He ran off after Jeremy, cutting into the crowd he disappeared into. It didn't take long until you spied his distant figure. You caught up with him, ducking in between a tourist couple and sidestepping into the side street he wandered into. You took a breath. Jeremy? Jeremy's slouched posture stiffened. His neck turned to look over his shoulder. His scowl deepened when he saw it was you. What now? Do you think looking at somebody means they're inviting you to start following them? Are you stupid to get that I don't want to talk with you? You're not going to be here much longer, are you? Oh, that's right. I'm a major pea-brain like you could figure that out without me having to spell it out. So what? I'm leaving in a few days. School starts next week. It's not like I can live here and teleport to classes? Pfft. I just thought it'd be nice to say bye. I don't know if we'll ever see each other again, so goodbye, Jeremy. Jeremy's face scrunched up. Saying that is pointless. Ugh, annoying. He stomped off into the crowd, vanishing into the sea of other tourists. When you couldn't see him anymore, you shook your head. That was it then. When you turned around, you saw Cove and Derek and his sister shuffling through the crowd. Derek saw you and ran for it, the other two following close. You alright? It's a little weird, but I'm fine. Thanks for asking, Derek. Jeremy's definitely leaving. He'll be gone in a few days.
So what?
Okay, who cares about the kid? Cove shrugged at it in she has a point kind of way. You nodded. There wasn't anything else to do about now. Jeremy was unlike anyone you ever met before. You didn't know what to think about him. You and the group moved from the stall and from Jeremy. It didn't take long for everyone to return to the joking. You all envisioned what little time you had left, and as Elizabeth mentioned, the hour was almost up. Little Chip had flown by, and luncheon must have been waiting for you by now. Derek bounced on the balls of his feet.
Okay.
Come on, guys, let's get going so we can eat. I'm starving. Homebound, here we go. Cove stretched out one of his arms lazily. Let's go, then. I looked at him appraisingly. Nodded at him. He then followed Elizabeth as she took it upon herself to lead the way home. He walked fast, much faster than Derek preferred. She kept gaining a lead, and then Derek would jog back up to the group. With Cove's long legs, he had no trouble keeping up. You walked side by side with Cove. You kept close to your neighbor. You both chatted about things you'd see at the shopping street, with Derek chiming in every so often. You caught Cove smiling at you a couple times. He was happy you were spending time with him. It was a pleasant walk home, and in no time you had made it back. Derek got got the front door and held it open for everyone as he moseyed inside. The three parents were still in the kitchen. They looked up and waved. Welcome back, everyone. Made just in time.
Hey.
Hope you're hungry. So, did everyone have a nice time out? She gestured for the people to take a seat at the table. Plates and silverware had already been placed out. You took your normal seats, and Elizabeth sat across from you, and Derek took the seat to your left. Cove sat to your right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we had a great time. It was fine. Cove shrugged, not willing to say more than that. Yeah, the bank heist went without a hitch. Your joke got some chuckles going around the table. That's good in my book. Casually, Mr. Holden sat in the empty seat across from Cove. He smiled at you and looked at all the other kids. Mom set down a platter full of water glasses at the table. She looked down at the gathering. It's good that thing we have 8 chairs. I can't remember the last time we had a group of this big over for a meal. Can you pass the drinks down the other side? Make sure you all get one. Yeah, because we normally only have 5 or 6. Sure. Those close-up cups obliged and started offering waters around. As everything got set up, Ma chided Elizabeth to take off her elbows off the table.
No.
And you shouldn't slouch. She pointed at Mr. Houghton, who was leaning forward with both arms on the table. Oops. Mr. Houghton seemed unsure about all the sudden attention and carefully rearranged his posture to something suitable for a fancy dinner. He sheepishly at Ma. Elizabeth rolled her eyes, and Ma gave a level look at her. You shouldn't be impolite to a guest in the house either. Elizabeth groaned in a long suffering. Ma giggled, and Mr. Holden chuckled.
Not bad.
The lot you could learn a thing or two from Derek. He has the best manners here. Derek blushed, but it was true. His posture was uptight and formal. He even held a fork gracefully. His table manners on top of his attempts to aid your parents made him the model of the attendees' behavior.
Aw.
It's nothing. It's true, though. You have been a lovely guest. I noticed that, too. It's always nice when you stay over, Derek. Derek smiled and sat a little tall in his chair. Do you have anything good to say about our other guests? She looked deliberately at Cove with a teasing smirk. Or is there just nothing to say? Well, Cove is my number 1, but he still does clean his hands by wiping them on his pants. Cove frowned at that and absentmindedly brushed his hands on his pant legs. Your mom's laughed lightly.
There.
Elizabeth, you should know after all these years, Cove is hardly a guest anymore. Cove smiled awkwardly. Thanks. Manners schmanners. Don't think I'm not seeing your elbows where they shouldn't be, Luna. Everyone ate their meal together and continued to hang out in the afternoon. After the food, he and the others played a couple games and talked about their plans for the upcoming year. The time passed quickly, and soon it was time to part ways. Mr. Holden talked to your moms, and Cove drifted over to you, knowing that as soon as his dad finished empty, he would be leaving. It'd be cool to stay, but we have some stuff to do before everything closes today.
Okay.
Yeah, bye, Boo. I need the phone. Cove raised an eyebrow, and Elizabeth impatiently gestured behind him. Cove realized he was standing right where the receiver was placed. Cove, he sidestepped out of the way and shook his head, clearly thinking Elizabeth was rushing too much. Your sister made a beeline for the phone and started dialing a number of what you figured was one of her friends. Knowing Elizabeth, she was going to be on there for a while. Cove, and Derek shuffled closer to the door. It seemed like Mr. Holden was wrapping up his conversation, so everyone was saying their various farewells.
Talk to you later.
See you later, Cove. We gotta do this again sometime. Yeah, see you. Cove turned to you and smiled lightly. Bye, Luna. You have hugged Cove by. You stepped forward and spread your arms wide. Cove only had a moment to react before you encircled him in your arms. Cove took a second to return the hug, surprised. He leaned into you and held on. Then he hovered nearby with a small smile on his face when it ended.
Dude.
Seriously, dude, we gotta hang out later. I'm gonna miss you during school. He punched Cove's arm softly. Cove still rubbed the spot afterward. Cove and his dad left soon after that. Your parents started cleaning up the house, and Elizabeth was still chatting to her friends on the phone. It was just you and Derek left. He elected to stay outside in the front of the house to wait for his dad to pick him up. You decided to keep your guest company. I thought he was originally Cove's visitor. A light summer breeze blew through your hair, and Derek shifted his weight from foot to foot. Thanks for waiting with me. He kicked the ground distractedly.
Well,
Dad's still gonna be a while, so do you want to go for a walk? Sounds great. One less trip for the day. The two of you walked down the street again, just wandering without a destination in plans. It was a quiet stroll, too quiet for Derek being the company. You turned to him when you noticed that he wasn't saying a word. That was unusual. Derek always had something he could chat about. You weren't sure if you should ask about it. Somehow, you ended up at the old park near the beach. You glanced over to Derek once more, so expecting him to say something any second now. However, nothing came from him. In fact, he noticed he had a frown creeping on his face. Derek smiled when he realized you were watching. At least his mouth turned up, but there wasn't anything that really felt happy in his expression. He turned away and the smile fell off his face. His eyes stared intently at the ground and he raised an eyebrow. Is everything okay? I'm a little sad. It's just, with school starting back up again, it's gonna be harder to visit. I'm gonna have homework and clubs, practices, and everything else.
this sucks.
It really sucks to go to different schools. His face screwed up and his fists were closed tightly together. This was really concerning him. What if we don't have the time? He channeled some optimism into the conversation. We'll make time. We can talk over the phone tonight and have plans for the weekends. It'll be okay. Derek looked up at the sky. It was orange and purple with little wisps of clouds scattering around. A plane flew high with a jet stream trailing behind it. He then turned to the ground again. Derek's face was tilted far enough down that it was hard to read his expression. Hey, Luna, I actually want to talk to you about something if you don't mind. There was a pause and you waited for him to finish his thoughts.
Sorry.
I was just wondering, do you like guys at all? Like, would you ever want to be with someone who was a boy? Sorry if that's a weird thing to ask. I could be with a guy. Okay, then. He hesitated before finishing his question.
So
what I mean is, just, is there any guy you think that is cool, that you like, around here? Not school or anything like that. He ducked his head further. He thought about it. There's a lot of guys I think are cool.
Oh.
Derek shrugged and then started to mumble in wonder. Maybe you don't get what I'm trying to ask, so, Derek pulled himself together, somewhat meekly. I know what he was trying to ask. He looked at you while he tried to project confidence. His posture was too tight for you to believe it. He was nervous.
Alright.
You know, thinking ahead and everything is important. You gotta get yourself a game plan and all that. It's good to make plans, especially backup plans. He babbled, all full of energy and forced gusto. Well, anyways, I heard about this thing where people make pacts with their good friends. If they don't find anyone else, then they get together. Together, like married and stuff. So I was thinking, since it's good to have plans, it might be cool if we did something like that. His eyes widened and he started to make frantic hand gestures. Just, that we'll never have to worry about the future finding someone, and we could just be like a whole decade in the future from finding someone now. And we have to graduate high school and probably college too, and we'll have jobs and be really grown up. I mean, we'll probably have our own places, maybe our own pets and student loans and cars. Derek babbled out for a while more. It was if all the words he held in silence during the walk had burst out all at once. So, what do you think? I mean, do you like me? Of course I like you, but it's not... He had to pause to find a way to explain himself. Well, you don't want to have to think about that kind of thing right now. It's better to worry about all that later when we're growing up. That's why it's a good idea to have a plan, And honestly, I think you and me would work out for the best for that.
So
Sure, it's a deal.
really?
Awesome. Derek smiled significantly and started to bounce excitedly at the balls of his feet.
Okay.
Okay, let's do it. This is actually really good. This is really good art. He had his hand offering a shake. Officially, he repeated the terms of the deal. If in 10 years I, Derek, still single, and if 10 years you, Luna Mayer, are still single, we both agreed the two of us would get together. Kiss her on cheek. He passed around his outstretched arms and placed a slight kiss against the side of his face. He gasped and slapped his hand against his other cheek. Oh, that works too.
It's a deal.
Why is this so adorable? And it just... Alright, thanks, I feel about the future already. He laughed and scratched the back of his head. You could tell he was giddy about this, and you felt happy too. I respect your commitment to preparation. Thanks. He didn't spend much longer at the park after that. Derek didn't want to miss his dad, so you both made your ways back to your streets. Derek's steps forward seemed lighter than before. Derek found all kinds of fun things to talk about as he walked side by side back to your street. Then you plopped down in the curb outside your house, hugging your arms around your legs. His voice was comforting, and you were grateful that Derek was keeping you both distracted from the inevitable. For a little while longer, it was still summer vacation. You listened while he excitedly told you all about the new action movie coming out in a few months. And then you watched his brow pinch as he described the new ball tricks he'd been working on perfecting. It was easy to laugh along to his tales. You enjoyed the shine in his green eyes most when the conversation shifted to funny stories about his little brothers. Still, there was a part of you that hadn't moved from the conversation in the park. Your face went hard replaying Derek's proposal for the future in your minds. You said yes. Did that mean you're kinda engaged? Engaged with caveats, maybe? Focusing on the pebble you're rolling under your foot, you felt a strange thrill twisting in your chest. You peeked at him, and Derek was still busy telling you about the time Nicholas dropped his treat baggie in the car and most of the cookies fell out into the seat and loose hair and dirt. Wriggling your nose, you laughed. No matter what happened in 10 years, you hoped you and Derek still got to hang out, even if you were just sitting on the curb together. It was almost hard to believe that this much time had passed at all when a couple of short honks rang out in the neighborhood. Snickering, Derek had scratched the back of his neck. Dad's here. You looked up the street and spotted the van coming around the corner. Mrs. Eyre cheerily waved her arm out of the window from the shotgun seats. Oh, and Mom too. Guess we know what that means. Derek rose to his feet and brushed some dirt off his pants. You followed his lead as the car rolled up to the front of your house. The van's side door opened slowly, laboriously opens. On the inside was George with a victorious, wide grin, and he tugged the heavy door open the rest of the way, so Derek had a way in.
Hi!
Hi! Nicholas was there too. You heard him yell well before you saw him. We're here! Looking past George, you found Nicholas bouncing against the straps in full force. Thanks for coming, guys. Wow, you're here. That's amazing. Holding on to the sides of the open door, Derek leaned into the car to give Nicholas a moment of one-on-one attention. You could hear the kids' giggles over everything else. Faintly, you could hear the conversation what was happening between Derek's parents, but you couldn't make out a single word. And before you could say anything with that thought, Derek glanced over his shoulder. He paused and held your gaze softly, and then Derek let go of the car to stand back in front of you one last time. I gotta go. Well, you know what, but bye. It was really cool hanging out today in the summer. Not even his usual cheery enthusiasm could keep his sadness away from this time. His voice grew quieter, and he scuffed his foot on the pavement.
We had a good summer break, huh?
We really did, Derek, but it had to end sometime. Yeah, it was the best summer, too. The confidence and sincerity in your voice lifted his mood. He put his hands on his hips and beams. It was. You hugged him goodbye. Holding him tightly, you weren't ready to let him go yet. Derek chuckled and gave you back a few pats. I'll miss you, too. Well, the time had finally come, and Derek hopped into the cabin of a van. George and Nicholas waved to you from their seats. The adults shouted their goodbyes. Next, from the front, you laughed at their muffled voices, and Mrs. Eyre leaned out from over her window.
Have a good one.
We realized probably couldn't hear us. Mrs. Eyre and I just wanted to say goodbye, Luna. Yes, goodbye. Derek leaned over his wife to give his farewells. Thanks for the bye. Thanks for this fun summer. You turned to George and Nicholas because it wouldn't have been there the same without them. Of the two, George seemed to be the one listening, and he watched his son look melt into a warm one.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the fun summer. Nicholas excitedly kicked up his feet as she spoke. He copied you. You were full of pride over his seal of approval. Grinning to ear, he gave the little boy a thumbs up. Take care, Luna. Then Derek closed the door for George this time. He moved the massive door with much more ease. After that, car moved further down the street before flipping around to drive up the hill and out of the neighborhood. He remained rooted there to the curb and watched the Cesare family drive away. You were relieved that you got a chance to see the whole family again. But they were gone, and you were left to your own devices. Pivoting around, you made your way inside. Now it was quiet, you yawned and decided it was a good time to settle in for the night. Stretching your arms over your head, you noticed the living room and the phone happened to be free. Godly! He picked up the receiver and quickly punched in the familiar number while going to take a seat on the couch. Soon enough, after explaining the situation to the housekeeper, Lee answered.
Hey!
So she's rich. Hi, Lee, can you talk? Definitely. Practically have to. My gosh, can you believe it's almost time for school to start? What happened to our summer? School starts first thing tomorrow for me.
Boo!
Ew, and I thought starting next week was bad enough. Enjoy your last week. Oh, I will. I hope you survive your first day. I think it'll be okay. School isn't too bad. That's true. Maybe it'll end up being a really good year. At least summer was nice while it lasted, right? We were busy. Yeah. Finally, you thought about all the best memories you had made this summer. Lee was there for some, but there were so many you hadn't filled her in on yet. You moved on to talk about her. What was your big highlight of the summer, Lee? Talking to you is always the best part of my summer. Even though it was a phone call, you knew that Lee was winking at you. Come on, tell me. What, you don't believe me? Lee? Alright, okay. So a high point for me was that when I took my trip with my parents to Europe. That was amazing. You and Lee continued over your adventures until both of you were yawning to each other over the phone. At that, you decided it's time to say goodbye for now. You just have school to wake up in the morning. Bye, Lee.
Bye!
Bye, Luna. Talk to you later. You left the phone on the side table for now. Looking at the clock on the wall, you saw that there was only about 10 minutes until your moms would be insisting you had to go to bed, so you could be rested well enough for school. You stretched your legs out on the couch and sighed in defeat, watching the minute hand change 1 minute closer to bedtime. You rearranged yourself, feeling restless. You looked out the window. Startling initially, you spotted a figure on the hills. It was Cove. When the surprise faded, you realized it wasn't so much of a shock at all. It was exactly something Cove would do. You went outside to go meet up with him. Strolling casually, you went over to the front door. When you arrived, you noticed how many fireflies were out that night. They drifted along lazily, barely minding your presence as you waded through to reach the top of the hill. Cove looked towards you and approached. You noticed right away that Cove looked happy to see you. Hey. You had him bounce in your step. You weren't sure how long you got before your moms roped you back inside for bed. Hey, you're starting strong. Out late on the very first school night of the year? Chuckling, Cove crossed his arms. Seriously, what are you doing here?
Nothing.
Nothing, not really. He shrugged, seeming unhappy with his own answer. You stared at him, waiting for him to continue. Well, I guess I was feeling kind of weird about stuff, so I'm getting some fresh air before bed. I know how you feel. It's hard to stay still. Tomorrow's gonna be the start of a new year. The mention of school, a small noise escaped him. Cove let himself fall back onto his butt and then all the way down, so he was laying on his back. He looked up at the sky. Sat on his chest. He made himself pretty available to see with the way he was laid out. He plumped himself square in the middle of his torso. Luna. He jostled up in surprise, though he couldn't get far with you on top of him. He plopped right back up into the grass. With a huff, he gave of being shocked. Fine. You snickered in a self-satisfied way. He had been lost in thought. It was possible waiting for you to situate yourself, but he started speaking unprompted again.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry for being kind of awkward when my mom was leaving. Surprised, you stared at him for a moment. You weren't expecting that. I just wanted you to know that I was talking to my dad about how I felt and things are... It's okay now. You were genuinely glad to hear that, and it brought a smile to your face, but you thoughts quickly wandered back to your first day when you met Mr. Holden. Did his dad confess about that? From the way Cove taught, you guess he hadn't. So there was more Cove and Dad to talk about, but it was a relief to know that it made a decent start. Now was not a good time to bring up what you were thinking, though. You could wait longer to say it. It was almost unbelievable how much of an impact he made on your life just by moving next door. You can even imagine what days you might have looked like in a world where you hadn't met him. Cove glanced back at you, waiting for a response. He had no idea what to say. Then, still without a word from you, Cove shook his head strongly. What? It's you. Huh? He snickered before answering. He looked thoroughly amused with your reaction. That's what you do all the time, so I'm being you. Wait. So it just shook your head. You were stunned. He took notice enough to take note of it. There was no response that you could give, but you noticed Cove smiling softly at you. He wasn't trying to be mean with it. Honestly, there weren't many people you could think of who could tease you about something like that. Returning the smile, you realized there was no denying that the two of you had been around each other for a long time. Cove broke the quiet before you could fully settle.
See you tomorrow.
Hey, I'll see you tomorrow. Yeah, see you then. With a final wave, Cove headed home, but you stayed there a few minutes longer. Your mind kept going back to the simple statements, see you tomorrow. No matter how much was changing around you, there was always some things in your life that could always seem to remain true. The hills felt warm to you that night. Before you knew it, you were getting comfortable under the covers in your room. Your mind couldn't help but still be buzzing with thoughts about the future. You felt excited. There was little doubt in your mind that things were moving forward, and you couldn't wait to find out what changes were waiting for you to be on the horizon. Slowly your eyes grew heavy as you drifted off to sleep, and your mind kept spinning with wishful thoughts. No matter what happened next, you could only hope that you would make the most of it. You were ensnared in a dream when the noise from outside jostled you. Your eyes snapped open. The light clatter continued. Now that you are more alert, you can distinguish it as a tapping sound. Quiet, slow, but persistent. Each beat was like being poked. You couldn't ignore it. You lifted your head from the pillow and looked for the source. Not much work was needed to puzzle it out. It was from the window. With that, you knew exactly who it was. When the color of the light filtered in your room, it was too early for anyone to be awake, including the sun. It had barely hauled itself over from the horizon, but that didn't stop some people, it seems. You sat up in bed and opened the window wide. Cool air, not yet warmed by the day, tickled your face as it pushed into your room. And just as you expected, there was your Negro crouching on your windowsill. He was fully dressed, though not for school. He was wearing a wetsuit and had a fond smile. Man, you're adorable.
Luna.
Hi, Luna. You stared back, blinking. So, technically we won't be back for school for a few more hours. His voice was delicate but deliberate. Each word was a careful explanation. Classes actually hadn't started yet, so do you want to hit the beach with me one last time this summer? Cove, you're cute. Your smile was wide and affectionately. You watched you get changed into something suitable while Cove climbed down to get to the ground level. Your limbs, still half asleep, struggled somewhat as you attempted to coordinate with him into a swimsuit, but you got there in the end. Soon you were tiptoeing out of your front door, clutching a towel. Cove was already there to greet you. Your eyes met. Cove's gaze darted in your destination back to you. You checked the doors closed and gave him a thumbs up, and the two of you leapt into action. Wordlessly, you began running down the familiar path ahead, and Cove beside you. The thrill of your illicit outing made you want to laugh. Not that you dared if anyone in your family looked out and saw, then your summer would be back to being over. One glance at Cove, you knew that he thought exactly the same, holding back snickers for fear of being hurt or caught. The towel streamed out from under your arm like a cape. You were running so fast downhill that simply keeping your balance was not tumbling down was a real threat. It just wasn't enough of one to make you want to slow your pace. For every step you took, the beach was a little closer and the day a little brighter. What lay ahead of you would arrive, and you were happy to meet it. The in-between. I'm just kind of curious. But where is...
Luna,
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Lex, Libby, Matthew, Caitlin,
There's a lot of
Jasmine,
different things.
Luna.
Yeah, nothing's changed. I don't think. Yeah, probably say my character's hair has darkened to black because that'll be funny. Size slender, large, medium, chubby. Yeah, I'll go slender. I want earrings. Nah. Those are still the same. I want braces. Nah. That scarf. What? Nail length. Say short. Nail color. Just plain. Nose ring. I'll say probably not. Done. Yeah, Dumford. I'd say crush. Because if I do love, then we can't get the ending for him. At least if I remember that correctly, so. Let me save quickly. Yes. Before I do that, this is okay, yeah, so the difference between crush and love is the not as large difference between other interest levels. Since both of them an interest, crush means you're interested and might consider having him as your boyfriend, and still be flirty with other characters. Love means Cove's the only person. Yeah. Yeah, so... Yeah, so you can always choose not to get together with him if you choose not to accept and give romantic gestures. Yeah. Yeah, so yeah. I just had to confirm. So I definitely do want